It is 5:47, and I'm Steve Rubesco, Chair of the Charter Review Committee. And as we have a quorum present here in the Paxton Safety Complex on February 10th, I am calling our meeting to order. I have the agenda posted, but before we get into the agenda, I have an announcement to make. One of the members of our committee, Tara, has resigned from the committee, citing that she had a lot of conflicts come up, and she does not feel she has the time allotted to dedicate appropriately to this committee and to its important work, and therefore she has asked to step down. She sent that notice to myself and to Heather. And so, effective tomorrow, we will start through the use of the town website, try to see if we can find another volunteer, someone interested and committed to doing this very important work, and who would be willing to work with us and to really make a difference. So, with that, that's the announcement I have. Are there any questions, comments from anyone on the committee?
No.
Okay. Make sure your microphones are on, the button. If the button is red, it means you're not on, so press the button so you are green. All right. As far as logistics are concerned, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. First thing on our agenda, and I will try to be succinct in going through the agenda. Megan did an incredible job of compiling the minutes from our January 27th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes?
I did review them. I had two minor suggestions. I'm not sure if the suggestions were incorporated or not.
Okay.
I didn't see them. Sorry, I didn't see them. Did you email them?
I had responded back.
I will forward, Megan, I will forward them to you. I'm sorry, I was remiss in doing that. All right, beside those two suggestions, there were no corrections, right? These were just suggestions?
No, I think the second point was in reference to the amount of time that we thought it would take us to complete our task.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the initial communication was 12 to 24 months, but during the meeting, we actually talked about it being that we would review it or renew it in the spring and give the board an opportunity at that point in time to tell them when we think that we'd have a better picture.
Okay.
I think we talked about that during the meeting.
Yes, we did.
Not the 12 to 24 months.
No, okay, all right. And part of what I'm going to cover tonight on updates from the chair talks to that, because I did reach out to the Board of Selectmen on a number of topics, and I'll go through those. Okay?
I have a quick question. Is there a, what's the password for the guest Wi-Fi here? Does anybody know? Do you know what the password is? No. All right.
I don't think there is one. I think if you just,
No, there's a password. It prompts you for a password. I tried Paxton. I tried 1765. I tried the usual.
Are you
All right.
checking the system?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
I guess I've had it so long, Chuck, I didn't remember.
Oh, yeah, once you're in, you just auto-connect, I would assume.
Yeah, it does, it auto-connects. All right. Gary so noted, I'll make sure she gets those comments. Thank you. All right. Third thing on the agenda is feedback from the committee regarding the Board of Selectmen session on the 27th, after we had our last meeting. I open the floor. Any reaction, comments, et cetera? You all were there in attendance? Everyone in the room was there? Feedback? How
Thought
do
it
you
was a
think went?
positive session. I think that they are willing to work with us. And I think that they're really just waiting to see what we bring to them.
Yeah, I agree. I think I came away with the impression that they trust us, they trust what we're doing. They have very good feel for what we're doing as a result of the presentation and confidence in us and our approach. And I think they are confident we're going to produce a high-quality product, and they'll know that when they see it. And as long as we continue to provide regular updates, I think that that will ensure we're on track, as well as the appointment of a liaison from there from the Board of Selectmen to join us every week, or every other week when we meet, I should say. So I think that too will ensure open communication, as you stated, and ensure that we are continue to be viable in our approach. So,
And didn't they say they were willing to do that kind of sooner than we were anticipating, or,
yes,
so is it like
absolutely, Paul. In
eager
fact,
and ready to go?
tonight, if you looked at the Board of Selectmen agenda for the meeting right after ours, one of the agenda items is they will assign us a liaison this evening.
Great.
Yeah. So next session on the 24th, they should be, that person should be here. Yeah, very good. Megan, any insights from you regarding the Board of Selectmen?
No, overall, I thought it was great. It was well received. They were super excited about what we had to offer, and it was kind of nice to hear their enthusiasm about how advanced we already were.
Yeah, I think that kind of,
Yeah.
kind of took them back a little. And
Yeah,
I
it did.
And by the way, I have received numerous feedback from other residents in town who have heard and/or viewed that presentation via the video. All very positive, very, very positive. So, okay. Item 4, if there are no other comments, I'll move on to item 4. Everybody good? Okay. Item 4, initial draft or the committee action plan. I want to thank Gary, the Gray, our wizard, wordsmith from the accompanying Shire, who did a great job of putting that action kind of plan together and formulating the breakdown of the various milestones and sections. I thought it was a great job. Chuck, I want to laud you for the setup that you've done relative to the folders and Google for us. I think it's an excellent job, and I would ask, has everyone checked that they have access? Perfect.
I'm going to say maybe. I checked that on my phone. It wasn't as cooperative, so I'm going to go onto my computer.
Okay, all right.
Let me know if you have any problems.
I think it's imperative that we utilize that repository for all of us taking, things that we want to add to it, and then we can walk through the plan and kind of continue to build it out with specific detail. But right now, I think it's a great start. And again, I just wanted to make sure we all had access and that everybody was able to see it. Any questions on the action plan or the breakdown as proposed by Gary? I have none either. I thought it was outstanding.
So I uploaded the one you sent out, or somebody sent out, I uploaded that into Google Drive, so it transferred it into a Sheets document, and it looks like it has the same functionality. So we could, if we wanted to, we could just upload, we could make updates there.
Yes.
And then it wouldn't have to be sent out again. It's just, that would be an active document.
Correct.
So we want to make sure that that functions how we need it to, though. So I'd encourage people to look at that, check it, make sure it's working properly.
Correct. The only other thing I would ask, and I was going to get to it when we covered your section, you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait till we get down there. All right, any other comments around item 3?
I have a question, Steve. If I can.
Sure.
And I too would laud everybody that Gary and Chuck and kudos to Megan for the the minutes, and I think that's fantastic. I haven't seen such thoroughness and action at all in any of my previous iterations as this committee, and I think the select board did come up with that. The one question I do have about the repository is that going to be, that is going to be solely related to us, is that correct? I just want to make sure that
Yes.
it's not going to be like a public thing that's on the,
No, you would need an invitation to access it, and
okay.
only
that's-
right now, only.
Okay.
So I'll remove Tara from it, and at that point, we only have, and Heather's not on it,
Correct.
right, and
And that's by design.
by design.
It is
That's
for
just-
us. It is our working repository. It's not for public consumption or anyone else. You know, the Board of Selectmen, et cetera. That's our working document.
Excellent,
Okay?
thank you.
All right. All right, updates from the following work streams. Communications strategy and plan. Megan, any updates you have to offer?
So I started putting together what Julie gave us in the last meeting into the plan, into the plan, and I will update, I will upload that to Chuck's document in Google so that everybody can take a look at it.
Perfect.
And then I think maybe an action step from that, whether we do this in the meeting, we take, 15 minutes or so to kind of go through and say what stakeholders are missing, and we can outline them and make sure we have them, or it can just be homework on our own when we look at it in the Google Doc.
Perfect.
We can add to that. And so it has on it the communication deliverables, which are just the options to us, and then the stakeholders will start to build, and then we can use that as a timeline to build out, which groups we want to meet with and kind of back that out too.
Perfect. Okay. Any questions for Megan?
No, I'm hopeful that if we make any kind of a presentation over at the town meeting in May for any kind of updates, that we have the ability to show the town all the communication that we've done in the different meetings in as simple a way as possible, so the issue of transparency is just not even a question.
Agreed. Agreed.
The presentation that you made to the select board, that would be a very nice start, maybe with some additions and updates, but that would be a very nice start to educate people don't go onto the website that much, but, we'll have people there, and, it'd be nice to have something that's on a town meeting, up there, so that, plus it would give Steve another chance to dazzle everybody.
He does seem to enjoy that.
Yes.
I have, over my long career, done a lot of presentations, so I'm comfortable at it. Let's just say that. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Megan? And Megan, there are a couple things I'm going to touch on when I do the updates from the chair. I have some nice updates for you. Okay, if none, David, research best practices update?
Yes, and that's, best practices is an interesting criteria, because best practice is probably one of the most subjective areas, because what I might think is a best practice, somebody would think would be a worst practice. So. But what I did between now and the last meeting is I started to call some people, and I also did some, reach outs to the Department of Revenue for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, their communities program, if you will. And they have a very interesting best practices, of which there's only one that relates to charter review. And so I said, well, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute, but with respect to best practices, I started calling and left messages for some of the people that were involved randomly out of charter review committees that are either present or have been completed. There's only one that I talked to that is presently pretty much the same level we are. Actually, I think we're probably ahead, even though they started before us, and that's Rutland. And but I did talk to somebody very interesting, and the Nantucket people. And the handout that I put there, a simple one thing there, is a very interesting document, because I said, if you don't remember anything that I said when I was talking to you, then you should just take this into consideration. So I cut and pasted it and brought it forth. One of the things that it talks about, and I asked specifically, where do you think bylaws should be? Should that be something we look at? Should it be something we don't look at? Is it something we should talk about incorporating or codifying, or what else should we do? And he said that was a very, very lengthy conversation that was had when, and Nantucket does have a charter. And he said one of the reasons is because you got to consider the tenets of what you're trying to do. It's not a mission statement so much as these are our working philosophies. And I'll defer to the paper itself because it does mention something about bylaws. And it does recommend or suggest somewhat that bylaws are something that a charter review should deal with. And I know that Paul's got some information there, and we'll go from there. But on the other hand, it's also possible that the selectmen would want to create a town bylaw review committee. I mean, if you go on the website, you can find bylaws all over the place, and you find a compendium of them, but most of the one, or a lot of them that are in the compendium don't have any applicability to me. It's just, these are we got from going from 2000 and such to 2000 and such. Well, that's good, but there's some in there that theoretically on the books. There are some on there some that are not on there that we have. So I would ask, maybe we open that up for a discussion at some point. What do we want to do about bylaws? Do you want to suggest that the Charter Review Committee volunteer to have a role in bylaw as part of the proposed charter that we're going to create? Because that'll take a lot of time, a bit. Or do we want to suggest that they create a new committee at some point to go through the bylaws? Or do they want to do nothing? And that may be something that we just kind of floated up there, because we're going to have new selectmen, or at least 2 new selectmen, coming up shortly. And the bottom line is, how can we address that? So the other thing I'll tell you, quite frankly, and if you remember from the first meeting we had, I mentioned something relating to an organization at UMass Boston, the nefarious "we'll do something for you, but you got to pay us for" committee. And the first thing I wanted to check out on that is, well, we don't have any money, and if we did get any money, it's not going to be anything like what Collins would, the Collins committee would be looking for. But they did say, hey, talk to the Department of Revenue, because Rutland got a grant. We've given grants. There's a lot of grants that we have done. And I looked and I found one from 2019 that Paxton did. Paxton's Employee Classification and Compensation Study, which was done in December of 2019, was the result of a grant, I think. But it was something that Collins did at Paxton's request, and it looks pretty good. I'm not suggesting that Collins, which one of the things that happens is that Collins is not the be-all, end-all, and I certainly don't want to have them write the charter for us and then have us pick it apart. But it is nice for them to have some of those conversations, because they've been to all kinds of places and done a lot for a lot of charters, some of them which are already in our shared drive there. So I did get some information on who to contact with at Mass Department of Revenue to see if they would, under their best practice thing for municipalities, which is to update or create or review or make any changes to an existing charter. And I was told that they might still have some money left in the fiscal year. Typically, when the state government does anything, there's always that rush at the end of the year. So if we are interested in that, we probably should try and get some feedback from, do we want to follow it up? I think it would be, ultimately, I mean, I could get information and present it, but I stopped short of doing that because, we're special town employees, which just means we don't get paid, but we do something. And essentially, I would not want to be talking about, other than getting the documentation, or Heather may already have it, because I'm sure she's aware of the 2019 and working on it. On the other hand, we probably might want to just get a free, if you will, review, because Collins is willing to send out someone at one of our meetings and make a presentation, and also have a Q&A. So that might be something that we want to consider before we get to really identifying all these best practices. We ought to kind of get a scope of all that. And the way that was suggested to me that we do that is we take all the charters that we're looking at, and we take their table of contents, and we try to take the biggest one there and then go from there. What's a best practice for, legislative paragraphs and whatever. So with all that being said, I throw that out for discussion, but
Okay?
the reality is that, we can be aware of one thing. If we see Collins, then we can have another discussion, a bigger agenda time, if you will. But I got a little bit of a feeling, and I've known some of the people at Collins in the past, and I'll tell you that sometimes they just like to tell you, here's what you should do. And it's
Yeah,
not-
if I may.
Yeah, please.
Couple things. Since our last meeting, sent questions out to people I trust, not only within our own community, but other communities. In fact, I have contacts in Rutland and in Hubbardston, not Heather, but others, Winchendon. And the bottom line is Collins is all about trying to shoehorn you into their process, into their forms, okay? Which may or may not be, applicable or the best use of revenue, okay, or expense. The other thing was, in talking to the person in Rutland, they are not overly impressed with the work that Collins is doing for them. And in fact, he said that the person in charge of the Charter Review Committee was actually regretting hiring Collins, which they had not done.
That being
The
said-
reason I printed off the three, or sent you the three examples of implemented town charters, Winchendon, Hubbardston, and Westboro, they are three highly regarded examples, good examples of a very well-written charter, okay? Speaking to the point that David made about bylaws, which is why I think Paul's work is exceptionally important. Yes, I agree, the town charter should not be all about the bylaws, but it should be about the integration of those bylaws in a non-ambiguous or conflicting situation with the bylaws that have been approved and are part of this town's fabric. So that is critical. I would further point out to you that the examples that we have, none of them appropriately represent the relationship between the town administrator, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee in how things are done here. The bylaws, Paul, that you're investigating, I would ask you to specifically pay attention to the newly ratified, as in the last 18 months, bylaws of the Finance Committee. Because those were ones that were very, very rigorously worked for months and months. Numerous rounds with both the town administrator, legal, Board of Selectmen, and others. in creating that document, which was then sent, A, to the town at town meeting and ratified, and then sent to the Attorney General and the governor. So that is signed off. I would further stipulate to you that I found out this in talking to the people in the town hall. Many of the bylaws that are in the bylaws section have not been ratified appropriately or have not been sent to the Attorney General and the governor for final approval. That's not to say we shouldn't at least take them at face value and try not to create any conflicting or ambiguous wordsmithing relative to our town charter. Does that make sense? Okay. So,
I would also just say that when we're talking about bylaws, I think it's kind of interesting in some of the things that I've seen. We have one committee, the Council on Aging, which has their own bylaws, which has been sent to and approved by the Attorney General's office. And that was all done with Anita Fenton's efforts. And it's a very well-done document. But we shouldn't be writing a bylaw for somebody. That's up to we should, in what we're going to have as a deliverable ultimately is to explain, this is the process that every board or every entity, or including the select board, should follow, so that we don't have a scenario where we have some committee that is out there, or some board, or some whatever, that's out there just flinging stuff up to the Attorney General's office without it having followed the appropriate procedures. I don't think I recall being at any town meetings, and this was fairly recently, where that charter of the Council on Aging was ever before the town committee, the town meeting. So anyway, with that being said, I will quiet, but I do think we probably should, we could maybe, if you want, based upon what my concerns are and what Steve has said from his research, we could put a pin in it as far as Collins is concerned, or we could take and because their deliverables are nice, and they won't give them to you unless you at least consult with them. We could have them come, have them give their presentation, which will tell us how charters are and how many towns there are and how many charters, wonderful things. But the Q&A afterwards would give us, can we see what you've suggested? Because the difference between what Westboro and everybody else and what Rutland ultimately will do, I'm sure, is going to be, they're going to take that and go someplace with it. Well, if we could buy that from them, not buy their services, we don't need to know how many towns and cities have a charter. I mean, it's not really something we need. We've already decided that we need a charter. But, that's something we could probably possibly address now. Do we want to have Collins come out here and, give us a show, another presentation, or not?
why don't we table that for now and let's have further discussion, okay?
Please.
All right, thank you. Chuck, anything else on the repository creation update? I think again, I laud you for a great job. I think you spoke to things. Is there anything else you want to share with the group?
Just if there's a need, so if you go into it, right, there's some subfolders, there's documents. If there's a need for another folder, any of us can create a folder. Like for now, there's an approved minutes folder from our first meeting. Once the last meeting minutes are approved, those can go in that folder as well. And then we could also use it, the beauty of these Google Drive docs that I like is you can make comments and edit them. So for example, you could upload the draft minutes, and then people can make comments right in there. They can be accepted or reviewed, so that we don't have, I have to go back into the email and see what it was. So that it's the dynamic element of those documents is appealing to me. But yeah, I think it's a good repository. I think we have a good start on it. As things develop, we can continue putting things in there, keeping it as organized as possible.
I have a request. Can I request that you create 2 additional folders? Folder 1, questions that we want to ask of elected officials, questions for appointed officials or employees, and then employees and general public. Okay, I would think we would want different questions for each, and I'll position that when I go through my section.
Okay, so elected officials, appointed officials, and general public.
Right. And the other thing I would ask is, the feedback that we get, can that be somehow organized? I just want you to think about,
All right,
okay, as we
so-
get feedback written, like, say, on the website, or we get something back in a mailing, you know? Can we start to think about how that can be organized? Again, don't worry about, I'm not looking for the answer tonight. I just want to plant that seed for you to begin thinking about how best to approach that, how efficiently we can approach that.
Okay.
Make sense?
And so we would want to organize and track it, right? So it could be
Correct.
like an Excel document where this is
Correct.
the feedback.
Correct.
Action
At the
items.
end, for example, as we're presenting our updates, we want to say, at this point, we have 8% of the population, the residents in the town of Paxton that have responded to us. So we have an 8% sampling of feedback regarding the town charter, et cetera. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So when you say, so questions for elected officials, we could organize that as like a survey? Is that-
Correct.
So we can build a Google form? in
Well,
which
we
case it will be
can,
tracked on
we
its own.
can, and I'm going to get to that again in a minute, because we're actually going to do some exchange in a smaller group. We're going to approach people, especially officials and the town managers, in a smaller group. We don't want it to be a quorum, because if it's a quorum, what do we have to do? We have to have an open meeting, okay? Has to be recorded, we have to do the whole nine schnoz, right? We don't want that visibility relative to an information gathering session, right? All right, and again, I'll talk to that a little bit,
Okay.
okay?
So I think I missed one. So the questions, we want elected officials, appointed officials, general public. Where do employees fit in there? Is that a separate bucket?
Yeah, let's put that as a separate bucket.
Might even just be a table,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
would just add it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay? All right. You good, Chuck?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Paul,
Yes.
any update from our bylaw synchronization?
Well, you kind of got the ball started when you reached out to Lori Becker about just kind of asking where the bylaws are found, and she said that, they are publicly available right on the website. There's a link. In that link, there's, several different tabs, to different bylaws depending on what year they were passed, and, there's not one clear document that has everything, but there's a place to go to that will get you to where it's all stored. But she also then said, kind of acknowledged some of the flaws of, the historical tracking and record keeping and getting everything approved by the Attorney General, and that there's some gaps and, things aren't maybe as well organized as they should be, but that isn't necessarily our purview of this committee, is that
Correct.
we're not a bylaw codification committee, we're, the charter committee. And although some of the towns and some of the examples you have set out, they decided that the bylaw codification committee should be the same committee as the charter review committee, but, that's not what we have been tasked with.
Correct, at least initially. I would
Right.
point out to you, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that as we get farther down, as in 2026, and we're gearing up, ramping up toward the closure, that the Board of Selectmen requests that our committee stay intact and then actually attack bylaws. But you're right. Within the current scope and defined purview of this committee, bylaw codification is not part of that. So that's,
But that being said, there's obviously, some relationship between the charter, the charter and the bylaws.
yes,
And we do want to make sure that they are, consistent with each other whenever we're referencing that. And
correct.
part of that work, I guess, depends on what we determine our scope of work to be, and, ultimately what that table of contents for our charter is going to look like. And that's where I could see, some role, David was talking about an outside expert, and I personally wouldn't mind, what is a Charter 101? What should those components be? What needs to be there, what's optional? And, part of that could be based on an expert, part of that could be based on our fact-finding and interviews and, reaching out to different people in town. But, that scope will determine how deep we need to get into the bylaws. But in the bylaws, there is an eight pages that reference, boards, committees, and officers of the town. So there's 8 pages dedicated just to that. And that's going to be a lot of overlap in the charter. And so, again, there's certainly a relationship that exists, but we just needed to define that a little bit more and think about, we don't need to replicate and repeat all the bylaws, but we need to make sure they're adequately reflected. So,
Great point. Is exactly why I wanted you. I was thrilled that you volunteered and investigate. I would plant this as an option for us. Within our draft, or even our final product of the town charter, reference to a specific bylaw or bylaws with a link to those bylaws as part of our document is more than acceptable. Okay, so that certainly can be an approach. We did that, frankly, in a number of places. Okay, and it works very effectively. So I would say. Any questions for Paul? Great job of investigation.
well, we're just getting started.
I know, we're just cracking the surface. I know, it's hard to believe this is only meeting 3, because we've done a lot of good stuff already, okay? So, yes. But, all right, any other comments? No? Okay. All right, I guess it's my turn. Updates from the chair. I have a number of things that I think you're going to be pleased with, that I want to cover with you all. All right. First and foremost, I've requested a first set of job descriptions from the town secretary. I have received them, and Chuck, did I forward those to you yet?
What was it again?
The job descriptions?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, get ready, they're coming.
Okay. And
Okay.
Steve, you can just drag those right into the folder.
I know,
It's a drag and drop system, so if that's easier for you.
that's no problem. I found it interesting that there is no job description for the town moderator. None.
Wow.
Oh, wait, it gets better.
Wow.
So in the workbook, in Gary's workbook, I created another tab, I think I called it Other. I found the appropriate job description for a town moderator. It's a 1-paragraph thing. And I'm sure that will more than suffice and keep Roger Brunel very happy. Number 2,
There is, sorry to interrupt, there is a reference to the moderator in the bylaws, just as a note.
I am not surprised. And interestingly enough, not in the existing town charter. All right,
No, there is. It's in the,
in the existing town charter?
yeah.
Doesn't say a lot.
It doesn't say a lot. It's 3 lines. The town moderator, an officer elected by ballot with a 3-year term, shall make appointments to the finance committee and any other appointments authorized by a town meeting vote or town bylaw.
Ah, okay, I sound corrected. Thank you.
Very, very limited.
Okay, all right. There is no job description for the Board of Selectmen. No job description whatsoever. At least not a formal one. I do have the town secretary, the town clerk, the town auditor, assessor, and treasurer. I have those job descriptions, which now that I have access to Chuck's point, I can upload myself, and I will do that. I'll create a folder called Job Descriptions, and I'll put them in there. All right. Number 2, I have presented a proposed schedule for updates to the Board of Selectmen at a 2-month interval, starting with targeting the 4th Monday of each month, Next update to the board will be March 24th. Okay, that's our next update to the board. And if you look, March, May, July, September, November, January of '26, March of '26, and rather than May of '26, because we have our target right now, and I say target, right? We have formally put a stake in the ground around our milestones, stating our target to deliver a town charter to the town meeting is in May of 2026. That's what the milestones say today. The Board of Selectmen understand that that is a target and it can move based upon what we find and et cetera as we continue our journey, okay? So I moved the May in one to April because I would assume they're going to want us to present in April what we're actually presenting in May to the town. All right?
Can I cut you for a second?
Sure.
So when is the town meeting this year? Do you know the date?
Oh, Lord, I do.
Is it early May?
Yeah. I want to say it's the first Monday in May?
All right, so your second meeting that we have scheduled for the Select Board for a summary is in May of 2025, which is probably after the town meeting. You may want to consider meeting with them at some point in time prior to the town meeting, so that way they can see what our presentation is going to be.
I would agree, except I don't think at this point I am comfortable in speaking on behalf of all of you, because I'm the one that stands in front and represents all of you, that we would have something substantive to report at this town meeting. When we get closer to that, we certainly can request that, we present either early April of this year or the last Monday of April, that we present something, if we're comfortable that we have something to present at this May town meeting. All right? I'm not certain we're going to be that far along. I would further suggest to you, we're not going to be in a position unless we make gigantic strides in the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, that we're in a position to talk publicly to the community at large without a communication strategy and something we've formulated and reaching out. We may be, I don't know, and we certainly can, but I was not comfortable presenting that at this point, at this junction. Does that make sense?
Well, I can't really talk about what your level of comfort is. My issue is simply that whenever we have an opportunity to present an update, whatever that update is, I don't want to see what we saw from a different meeting with the town occur with us, where there was
Agreed.
a revolution that occurred. So I'd rather, if we are successful over the next few weeks and months, and we have whatever we have for an update, that we have met with this department and this department and the select board, and we've created this template to start to move the process forward. That to me is along with your presentation from day one, that to me is an update that gives them, the public, the idea of where we're headed.
Okay, fair enough. I would suggest to you, once we have a liaison, which should be at our next meeting, we certainly can talk to that and bring that up at that point.
I totally agree with that, because I think the more we introduce it, even little milestones will help them understand. And, repetition is key, I think, with what we're doing. But we
Agreed.
might be able to, at that point, if we can identify how will we inform, or how will we garner the feedback from the community at large about what they want in there, we could offer up a couple suggestions of locations, times, if we could at least confirm them and put them up on the meeting and say, we're going to have these open forums. We'd love for you to join us for coffee and talk about the town charter and bring your whatever. But maybe we'll have at least 3 options for them to attend at that point at least gives them a sense of, oh, they actually want to hear from me, versus if we wait a year. We really didn't include them.
Fair comment, fair comment. Okay, all right. I have requested paperwork for a transfer of funds to be submitted when ready to the Finance Committee for funding for this committee's expenses in February, for fiscal year '26. That budget is going to be finalized and presented at the town meeting in May of this year. Our fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30th, okay? So right now, we're in fiscal year '25. If we need anything from an expense standpoint at this point, all I need to do is identify what that expense is. So I'm asking you all, if you have an expense, something you need, poster board or whatever, I can reach out to the town hall, to the town administrator, town clerk, and get the materials, and if they can't, they can order for us. It'll go under the supply, general fund supply, and we'll transfer. But I want to be in a position to at least project what our expenses are for starting July 1 and going to the end. And those will be covered by an identified number that will then sit under the select board budget, because we're not a permanent committee, we do not get our own cost center, and they will, that bucket of money will fund our activities beginning July 1 all the way through the end. Make sense? Okay.
I want to build off of what Megan and Gary said. So the challenge, right, I feel like there's a disconnect right now. We can go to town departments and employees all we want, which is what they did with the zoning bylaws and everything else. But then there's a disconnect between what those people think and what the general public thinks, right? And I think that's what we saw at the town meeting.
Yes.
And they made some efforts, right, to talk, to have these general info sessions and that type of thing, right? But a lot of people didn't go, right? So that's a challenge for us, right? We need to really engage the general public to avoid what happened with recent initiatives. So we have to, and there's no model for that, right? We have to kind of figure that out. But right now, our information gathering is set to end at the end of May, right? Which makes it a challenge. If the town meeting is early May, then we would, for our general public info sessions, so to speak, if we want to promote them at the town meeting, they would have to come at the very end of that window.
If I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think our plan is an iterative process that will never stop. So in other words, we talk about our initial data gathering ending in May. It doesn't mean that in the second phase or whatever, that we're not doing additional information gathering. Because every time we reach out to someone, we're getting information, right? We're getting a response.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
getting
yeah.
additional things that we can use relative to our formulation. I would also contend to you two things regarding your comments. One, there are going to be two types of people that we will come in contact with. And this is true whether they're elected officials, appointed officials, employees, or residents. There are going to be people that are very, very familiar with dealing with municipality and municipality life. And so when you ask them about a town charter, they're going to shake their head up and down and know what you're talking about. That is going to be a very small percentage of the people that we reach out to. Most of the people, even employees, et cetera, okay, have not been in municipality life for a long time and have no clue what should be in a town charter. All right? No idea. So it's imperative that we create or frame a right set of questions or open-ended statements to make them think and give us their impressions, right, without us asking pointed questions, because that's going to be imperative. That was something else I got as very good advice for a number of people that I talked to. They're not going to understand. Finally, all the communication strategy in the world, all the executions, all our deliverables, all the work and the outreach that we're going to do, it still relies on one thing, that the recipient of this communication, in whatever form it takes, has to be willing to listen. I not say it here, I said listen, digest, and take an interest and then become engaged, okay? A lot of the people that said they never heard, it wasn't because there wasn't an effort to reach out to them. They weren't interested at the time until it became one of, oh, you're going to rezone, which has an impact on me, or B, the budget override is this, and which means my taxes go up. Okay? And that also is a reality. And that's one we're going to have to deal with. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to do the best we can. Okay? Fair comment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's, I think you're right. The key is how we frame it.
Correct.
And make it real for them, right? To kind of communicate.
Correct.
This says-
Correct.
This says,
What is it that we can say or frame that will reach them and make them engaged?
You have to tell them why it matters. Like, I think we need to do from the public is just why is the charter important? Why is it important for a town to even have a charter, and why does their voice, why does it matter? I
Right.
think that's the one thing they missed with that other piece, is they
Yeah,
didn't. put
I
that
would
in
agree.
there.
All right. One final thing, the last two bullets you can read yourself, they're kind of more administrative, and you've already determined that those two items were done. I met with Heather, and you're going to find that as chair, I will meet with her once a month. And we just do a general sync point, because sometimes she's able to attend, sometimes she won't be. And I asked her for a proposed schedule that we can sit down and talk to all the town managers and potentially employees. This is what she said, all right? There needs to be a small group of us, i.e. 2 or 3 people, that have the ability to sit down and meet with the town managers during the day, and we can set up a schedule depending upon the availability, and sit down with them either here or in town hall in an interview room, and we can schedule that and begin to get their feedback. Again, I want to do that after we're comfortable that we have the right frame of questions in place, right, for us. And that was number 1. Number 2, as far as the employees concerned, it was recommended that we publish through the town managers an availability schedule where we sit in a room. It can be this, doesn't have to be the same 2 or 3 people, it can be different people. And we offer an opportunity for the employees to come in and talk to us. Okay? That was what was recommended. And again, I frame it such that, remember, these guys, a lot of them have never been at this level, or what we're going to be talking about is going to be foreign to them. So again, it's important how we frame. Okay? So, I am retired, therefore I can do it. I can be one of the 2 or 3 people. It cannot be a quorum, it can't be 4 of us, but it has to be at least 2. Is anyone else willing, or can they? Dave, you can do it? Good. Mr. Gary, are you available?
I'm available in general, it just depends upon what the time frame is.
All right, well, we can ask.
Yeah,
I can set a schedule and say there's potentially the 3 of us,
yeah.
and we'll see what we can get as far as availability. If you could send me your availability, and David, same with you, if you have certain days you can't make, and then I can share that with Heather, and we can go from there. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7, Heather and I discussed this as well. Megan is going to be all consumed with driving our communication strategy. In fact, I would suggest Megan is going to need help with the communication strategy. So anyone who has the cycles beside me, I am always available to help any one of you. Just feel free to reach out, I will help you. If we can get someone to help Megan in that responsibility, it would be great, because it's a huge, huge thing. Okay. Gary, can I ask that you and I continue to work on building out the plan and with their additions, and then we can see, we can go from there? And
Yeah.
maybe we can consolidate kind of a first draft of, beyond the milestones, kind of a build out
First draft of what?
the action plan steps.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. There is initial draft of some questions that we put into the action plan. I have no problem of trying to just make it cleaner.
Yep, perfect. Okay. That being said, we are looking to realign the committee. Is anyone willing to assume the role of secretary? Let me define what that means. You're responsible for a very important job, to record the minutes of our meeting and to publish them, get general approval, and then forward those minutes to me. Then I send them on to the town clerk, that they are then published, made hard copy, and put up on the website. The job of the secretary is going to be remarkably easier now that we're here and that our sessions are being recorded, because you don't have to take notes. You could actually watch the recording
Oh,
and do it afterward. In the ideal world, the minutes would be lovely to be able to be viewed at our next meeting, but it's not mandatory. It could be a couple meetings before the minutes are actually ready for approval.
does that video recording transcribe?
I believe you would watch the recording and then stop it or whatever to take
Oh.
whatever notes.
Because I know at work, that's what we do. We
I'm
just-
sorry?
At work, when we have a meeting, we just get the transcription, and then that becomes the minutes. But I don't know if they have that capability.
I'm not sure they have that
Can I
capability.
make a
Okay.
suggestion for
Yeah.
what it's worth? There's nothing wrong as long as, general public member can say, hey, Mr. Chair, can I record this? And he gets the chair's permission. You could record it on your phone or
Hmm.
whatever. So you wouldn't have to worry till, it's going to be a delay in getting it posted anyway.
Yeah.
But you could just record it.
Yeah, and it's pretty
It-
simple, but do we need an actual role specific to secretary, or could it be a rolling, if it's just the minutes that the secretary does, could it just be a rolling job where everyone takes a meeting?
Sure. I don't see I mean, yeah, and I will check. I
Okay,
certainly don't see an issue, all right?
There is a description in our charter, that's in our charter, that says this is what the secretary does. And,
Yes, and it is a recognized position.
Oh.
All right? All right, I'm attempting to wrap up so our friend can, all right? Is there any other old business or anything else?
thank you.
Anything from the public? All right, with that, at 6:45, I'm adjourning the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion
Second.
to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.